What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this is all about the upcoming fight that has been announced between Jake Paul and Tank Davis that is set to take place on November 14th on Netflix. So we know we're going to have another massive event on our hands. And will we get the same number of streams that we got last time? 70 million or whatever it was simultaneous, or I don't know if that was like accumulated, but it was just massive, insane numbers of people watching. I don't know, because I think Mike Tyson drove a lot of that. A lot of people like me who grew up back in the day watching Mike Tyson just be a smashing machine. We all wanted to see if he still had it. It was a big name, somebody who's been out of the sport for a long time. So I don't know if it'll be the same, but then at the same time, I don't know. It could be more, because now we're fighting somebody he's fighting somebody in his prime who's 30 years old. Now, there's all sorts of other things to consider here. Obviously, the weight differential is what everybody's been talking about, why people are being negative about this fight. But what's new? Everybody seems to crap on Jake Paul all the time. Well, I'm here to give a different perspective, and I'm not even a boxing fan. Well, maybe if I was a boxing fan, I'd be more negative. I don't know. But I'm an MMA fan. Jake Paul kind of got me roped into his ride, if you will, when he was picking guys to fight like Nate Diaz, like Tyron Woodley, like even Ben Askren. It was, I don't know if he had planned it all super intricately in terms of how it was to unfold and if he wanted, was going to eventually be a professional boxer. But the way it worked was for a lot of MMA fans like myself, okay, we watched those fights because we wanted to support the MMA fighters, and then all of a sudden we got swept up in the ride. And let me explain the ride that Jake Paul is on and why I'm intrigued by it. Okay, I was talking to Justin, my co-host on the show, as a professional MMA fighter, about this. So let me begin. I'm going to go through 5 reasons why I am excited for this fight and why I'm excited to see what Jake Paul can do, how long this story goes on and on. So the first thing is I encourage you guys to think of Jake Paul as a normal guy. And I think this is because this is really what it is. He didn't even start training boxing until his like mid-20s, something like that. And he just decided to do it on a whim. He was doing some influencer boxing. He won a few fights. He knocked out some real athletes, professional athletes, basketball players. I mean, that's a tall task to go up against Nate Robinson when you're not a professional athlete and try and take them on in any sort of sport or competition, boxing nonetheless, where it's terrifying. And he went out there and he knocked them out. He KO'd them. And he realized he had knockout power. So imagine if one of your buddies at like 24 or 25 was like, yo, I want to start boxing. And be like, okay. And then he's going in there and he's fighting a professional basketball player. Now, granted, he had a name. He was a YouTuber, but he wasn't like a crazy athlete. Did some wrestling. So that's really the way that I look at Jake Paul. He's just a regular guy who decided to get into it late and then all of a sudden started taking it really seriously and is doing the unthinkable. And then he goes in there and then he starts fighting real fighters. Now you might say, well, I don't give him credit for that. He's boxing guys who are MMA fighters. It's a different sport. Yeah, that is true. It's still terrifying. I have sparred multiple times with my coach and actually just my coach. I don't know if I spar with other people straight boxing, but I've done straight boxing. And MMA guys, you might think, oh, their boxing is not that good. Dude, to the normal average person who's not a professional athlete, their boxing is really good. And he pieces me up all the time. And so to go out and fight Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva, who's actually got a pretty decent boxing record, to fight these guys is terrifying. These are goats of MMA, but they still can strike. They still have hands. Don't think that all of a sudden you go to boxing and they're ineffective. Yeah, against a professional boxer, it's a different thing. Okay. But obviously a lot of that is still going to translate because they know how to punch. They just have to modify their footwork, ducking and weaving, things that don't really work in Muay Thai or like actual street fights. So thinking about a normal guy, a buddy of yours who just started training like 4 years ago, decided to get up, no, let's say like 2 years in, just decided to get up there and start fighting former UFC champions in a slugfest. It's insane. And then he not only beats all of these guys, then he starts fighting actual boxers, which a lot of people don't realize. He's fought multiple professional boxers on his record. It's just people seem to ignore it. They're like, no, he's only fighting influencers or he's fighting MMA guys. It's like, no, he's actually fought a couple boxers. It's just nobody tuned into those fights. Fought Tommy Fury. Yes, he lost. I get that. He just beat Julio Chavez Jr., former champion, a real boxer. Like, it's crazy what he's accomplishing, but everybody seems to want to write him off, I guess, because they don't like him, I think is what it is. But it's truly amazing if you think about it through that lens of, hey, this is just a guy that I know that's doing his thing. So I invite you, if you hate Jake Paul or you're mad at him or whatnot, just think about it that way. And then I think you'll see, like, this is legendary stuff that he's pulling off right here. And he's trying to still move it up and fight even greater and greater competition, which is wild because he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to do that. He could probably still fight influencers and all these other folks, smash them and make a ton of money. But he's chasing something different. He's really challenging himself. I think it's very exciting. Okay, point number 2, why we should be excited about this fight. Remember when Logan fought Floyd Mayweather? Logan was massive compared to Floyd. Okay, people watched, people tuned in, and people knew that Logan was probably going to lose despite the weight differential. And Floyd did win. Floyd won pretty handily. Logan did a good job of like holding him down and making it so that he couldn't move, but he didn't really box that. I mean, he couldn't. He was totally outclassed. So something like this has already happened with one of the greats, arguably the greatest boxer of all time. But after he was retired, when he was in his 40s, and he still beat Logan Paul handily. Now we got Jake Paul doing something similar, going against the guy who's also considered to be one of the best boxers on the planet, but in his prime. So it's similar, but a much bigger challenge. People, look, my point is it will mean something. Even if Jake Paul gets this victory with, what is it, a 55-pound difference compared, like looking at what they weighed in during their last fight, it will still mean something because that's a massive differential to cover. And if he's able to pull this off despite the weight differential, it means that Jake Paul's skills have gotten to somewhere serious. Because otherwise, it's just going to be a total, he's going to have such a total advantage with all that muscle memory, all the skill, all the practice, the years of repetitions, all the fights he's had. He's had 30 wins, 0 losses. I mean, that's crazy. Think about that experience. The weight doesn't mean anything unless Jake Paul has some level of reasonable boxing skill, which I believe he has. And I think and again, that's what makes it competitive. You think, for those of you guys who are like, this is lame, I'm not going to watch it. There's a reason why Netflix is putting this on, because they believe that people will be interested. And they're right about me. I think a lot of people will be interested. And I think it's going to be a way better fight than the Tyson fight. And I think it's going to mean something. Now, if you still can't get over it, and by the way, look at these numbers. It is kind of crazy, right? 30-28, 31 fights to 12, whatever. He's undefeated. Jake Paul's had 1 loss, 28 knockouts. Now, but look at the height, look at the body differences. 5'5", okay, versus 6'1". That's an 8-inch height difference. Not that height is necessarily that indicative of anything, but look at the reach. 67.5 to 76. That's 8.5 inches. That's like this much. It's almost a foot. That's crazy. So, if Jake Paul is tactful enough, he can stay out of range and just keep connecting. And like Gervonta Davis is going to have to rush in, which could open him up to a knockout. We know Jake Paul has power. I'm sure Tank Davis has never been hit by somebody as hard as Jake Paul hits because of the weight and size and strength differential. So it's going to be interesting, but you never know. Maybe he's so quick, he's moving around, tagging him up. But yeah, these stats are quite interesting when you look at it. Okay, but we're going to get to the 4th point in a second in terms of if you're mad about the weight. The next point is, again, Tank Davis has been ranked in the top 10 pound for pound for boxers. That's a big deal. Floyd's been in that list, obviously, as well. But Tank is right there right now, active, doing his thing, 30 years old, in his prime. So for people to get so up in arms when you guys were kind of on board with Logan Paul fighting Floyd Mayweather, where Floyd won, this still means something. If Jake Paul can come out and win, I think it's worthwhile to tune in and see if the Jake Paul train keeps going. And if he loses, props to him for taking the fight. I don't know. I think it's interesting. And if you're still mad about the weight differential, the height differential, the reach differential, you say Jake Paul is cherry picking opponents, this is ridiculous, why is he doing this? Don't get too mad, because I do believe this is going down. I do believe Anthony Joshua will be next. He wants to fight. I'm sure Anthony Joshua will be watching this fight, and then nobody can say anything. Then he's taking on a massive guy who's dangerous as heck, who knocked out Francis Ngannou. I really do believe this is going to happen, because I think Jake Paul's crazy enough to do it. I would never do it if I was Jake Paul. It's crazy. But I think it's going to happen. So anybody who's crying or upset or whatnot, it's all going to pay off. It's all this whole journey is going to pay dividends very soon. But I'm actually in for this fight right here, right now. I want to see it because it does mean something more than most people think. Last but not least, why I'm excited about this fight. I've kind of been touching on this the whole time. Again, I want to see the story unfold. I want to see how it ends. I'm at the edge of my seat. I really am. I'm like, every time he goes up, I'm curious to know what's going to happen. Is he going to lose? Is he going to get knocked out? Or is he going to keep trucking? Is his skill going to increase exponentially? is he actually going to fight Canelo one day? Like the things that he is speaking and then bringing into existence, I think it is impressive. And I think for some reason, people just don't like Jake Paul. And that's why everything he does, he can just never do any right. You know what I mean? I do think there's an element of that. But if you try, it's hard, but try to look at it through an objective lens. Look at him as a friend of yours who's doing something crazy. It's pretty dope. On top of that, he doesn't need to do it. He's already doing great with all his other ventures. He was I think anyways, he already had a big following on social media, had lots of opportunities. He chose to go into this, which very rarely happens. I think it's a cool story. I'm here for it. I'm excited. He got me sucked in when he was fighting MMA guys, because I'm a huge MMA fan, and now somehow he's the only boxer that I care to watch, which I'm sure a lot of boxing purists would say, yeah, I'm like a total garbage fan. But I am. I will admit that. I'm not. I don't even like boxing. I barely ever watch it. But Jake Paul, I will tune in. So there we go. Anyways, there are my 5 reasons as to why I'm excited for this fight. Let me know in the comments. Do you feel the same way? Do you also want to see this go down, or do you think it's nonsense? Do you think it's crazy? Do you think he's picking just like super favorable matchups, which I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But I think there's something to this, especially if Netflix is putting it on. That's my 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.